I guess we're ready to get started. I'm Mitchell Simpson. I live over in the Texas Panhandle, trapped kind of the western half of Texas, all the way down in South Texas and in New Mexico. And this is Bobcat demo, by the way. The last few years, I mainly do predator control work, you know, with the fur prices and all. But we used to focus a lot on some high dollar cats in New Mexico and everything. If y'all met Wayne Reed, he and I have trapped and hunted together since we were 15 years old. And if you got a partner to go with you, look for one. It's twice as much fun. It's fun by yourself, but it's twice as much fun if you got somebody to share it with. You know, whether it's that weird catch or whatever it is, you know, or the one that got away right in front of you. Or it's just a whole lot more fun if you can do it with somebody. As far as on cats, on location, I mean, the best place is where you got cat sign. But unfortunately, all the time you can't see cat sign. If you're in some country that's really, really rocky, they're not leaving tracks, or you've got pack rats hauling off cat turds, you know. Pack rat nests are always a good place to look, though. But some of the times you don't see sign, but you know there's cats there. And so, location-wise, you're doing intersections, edges, something that stands out to you, and then places that you just got a hunch about. And those intersections, it may just be as simple as the intersection of two roads, or a trail in a road, or a dry wash, two dry washes coming together, a long running saddle, or a long running ridge and a saddle going across. All those are intersections of some kind, and those are usually travel ways. That's where they're traveling. And edges. Edges are a vegetation change. Goes from really thick, heavy vegetation to, you know, lower, or a tree row and a crop field. But those edges, rock face is another good one. And those generally are kind of hunting areas. You know, that heavy cover's holding rabbits, and that rocky stuff's holding rodents. So they're hunting through there. And, you know, you'll put some sets in those locations, even though maybe you're not seeing that sign. It's great if you got sign, but just because you don't have sign doesn't mean you don't have cats. The other thing on location, if something stands out to your eye, it's going to stand out to that cat. If it's that lone tree out there, or a boulder pile, whatever it is, those things are really good cat locations. And so, you know, look for those. Last but not least is a hunch. And if you got a place that just looks catty to you, or you got a hunch about that place, set those up. And a lot of times those are really productive. And the reason that we have a hunch about that is from past experience. It's where you're getting that hunch. It's not just out of the blue. It's from past experience. Hey, I've caught cats in a place that looked like this before, or whatever. And you may not consciously be thinking that, but it just looks catty or whatever. So a lot of times a hunch may be your best location, you know, even though you're not seeing the sign there, but it's just a catty kind of looking place. As far as tools, I don't use a whole lot of different stuff. And these here, I haven't been able to find them in a number of years, but these are Gerbers. And they fold up really small. And if you're making mini cat sets, I mean, a walk-through cat set, in my opinion, is one of the best, and my favorite anyway. And you can cut brush to brush in that opening on the sides to neck those cats down some. So that's something really handy cat trapping. I think it was Lenny or somebody yesterday, they were using foam pads too. I don't have a whole lot of rain and freezing temperatures, so these foam pads work good for me. That's 1/2-inch craft foam you can buy at Wally World. A 12-foot roll of it, or 10-foot roll of it for $12. I don't know, it's about 3 foot by 10 foot or something like that. You can make 200 or so underalls, which is a lot more. So you using underalls? No? Was you using underalls, Jim? Somebody yesterday was, okay, Lenny was using them, Lynn Dunn. And I mean, I've run chain super stakes. I will use a drag. I keep a quick link in there. All of the J-hooks are welded up, but I can put me a drag on there if I need to. And some of the times you got a quick link there, you can go around your super stake if you can't take your super stake off. As far as lures, I like Wayne. Derek's got Pecos Valley, Rocky Mountain Cat Call, his Super Cat, Dobbins Perfect, Bob Jameson Sierra Mist is a real good rub lure. Wayne Derek's Pecos Valley is a really good rub lure. Jim Halseth, he makes a Montana Magic and some others that are really good cat lures. O'Gorman's Feline Essence. But also, I mean, this particular one is Tracy Truman's, but man, these things fly really easy. I don't use them as much as I should, but it takes just nearly no wind whatsoever to turn those things. But that's a visual lure. And just like the feathers there, that's a visual lure. And you can use a CD or this, or like I said, feathers on the ground, any of those kinds of things. Electronic lures. I trapped a place out on the west side of New Mexico that had very few cats, but they had crazy good cats. And the only places I caught a cat out there was locations that I had these. And this one, you can change the sound. You can change the volume too. Or you can even put sometimes I'll put electrical tape across there if I want it to be pretty quiet. This one has a photo cell, but I've got tape around that, electrical tape around it.
Where do you get those?
These are Wasatch Wild Call, and there's a fella out of Utah that makes these. If you get on Trapper Man, he's Grit Guy. He doesn't advertise them. He doesn't have a web page or anything anymore. And these are not cheap here. They're about 35 bucks. But I've got quite a few of them. And I use them line trapping. They're really effective line trapping.
And
Huh?
You just leave it out there?
Yeah. A lot of times if I had a walk-through set here in these trees or whatever, I'm gonna wire it up above. I want it up higher. Saying, put your visual up there too. And if you want to put some call lure up there, I'll put those all up higher, and I wire it. And a lot of them, I already have a wire twisted around and then two tails. And I will wire that up, because if you don't, this sucker will leave. And I don't know if it's coats carrying it off or what, but I've had a few of them where I put them in a rock pile or something like that, and that sucker was gone. And I know it's on a really large ranch, and unless it's illegal coming through, an animal had to carry that off. I haven't used any of these. I've got a buddy using some that's liking them. I don't know, they're 12 bucks a piece or something like that, 10, 12, or a pack of them, 6 of them for 70 or something like that. I don't know exactly. But you got your regular, what everybody thinks of as lure, that is attractive to their sense of smell. And then if we've got a visual, we got their eyesight. And then if we got this, we've got hearing. And I mean, I'm gonna use everything I can on cats, because if I'm cat trapping, I'm gonna be there 10 to 14 days someplace. And if you miss them one time, they may not be back around while you're there. And so, and I'm gonna use multiple smells on a cat set. I don't think it hurts you any using multiple smells. Here. One of my favorite sets is going to be a kind of a Western cat walkthrough. Janice Johnson made me this from here in Oklahoma. And if you use a drop cloth, which is not necessarily cat trapping at all, but this has a knee pad in it with a drop cloth. And you can change out your knee pad or whatever. But if you're on some wise cows, I'll use one some. Y'all are more than welcome. Anybody want these passed around or anything? Yeah, you can even, I'll take the back cap off that, and then you can kind of see the controls and how that works in there anyway. I love a dry wash, you know, a drainage or something like that, and doing a blocked up cat set in here or something. And if you're strictly cat trapping, it's not a bad deal to set 2 traps. But I'm gonna block this down as hard as I can on the cat. I'm not gonna anchor this trap or nothing, obviously. These are KB 5.5s. Really a cool trap. Between me and my buddy Wayne Reed, we've held 3 lines in these little old 5.5-inch jaw spread. We hold 3 or 4 mule deer every year. Man, I've held lots of exotics, and that's the worst thing about them, is they do hold everything that comes along. When I'm doing these, I make them step over a jaw here. But the reason, and anybody, if you want to come up here, you're more than welcome to. Or, man, if y'all got a question, just feel free to interrupt me and say whatever it is. If you like me, you'll forget if you don't. I really don't want anything that they will step on, you know. I'd like that up a little steeper. And I try to build that to where I'm a little lower. But I'll go ahead and set all this blocking and everything in there before I cover that trap. And that way I know I can get that as close as I can to those jaws. And I want that stuff to be pretty stable too when I block that in.
You ever worry about the rocks falling on your pin or anything like that?
That's a good point there, Pierce. I like those in there pretty stable. I was line trapping in West Texas one time, and I'd been by a set, and the day before, and I come back by it the next day, and I thought, something don't look right there. And so I got out and got to looking. Well, I had a big boulder. I had it kind of a corral or a cubby to keep the desert bighorn sheep out of it and all. But something didn't look right. So I walked over to that set. I'd just been there the day before, and there had been a prickly pear pushed down, laying right on top of my pan, just a pad off of that prickly pear. And so I had game cameras on that. I pulled my game cameras, and I had a line come later that night. But earlier that night, I had a bobcat come in there, and I had used, it was my fault because I had used that prickly pear for blocking. And that bobcat had got in there and got to rubbing, had pushed that pad over on top of that pan, and I had a line come in, and I got 5 pictures of that line. Well, that camera only takes a picture every 30 seconds, so that line was there for at least 2.5 minutes. and he wouldn't step on that trap because there was a prickly pear pad sitting there on it. But I'll block that up real heavy like that, maybe even heavier. You want to put, I'm in every little old place, and you can even put some sticks in here, smaller sticks. But I like to, you can put another trap here, and you can go ahead and block it up, or you can just leave that trap unblocked. But you think you've got that thing blocked up as hard as you possibly can, and sure as the world, there'll be a cat step on a jaw or something. And what Pierce was asked about on the rub set, on a rub set, I want to get that rub lure. And it's another set I really like. I want to get that rub lure up at least probably about 15 inches off the ground. And you need to get that rock really stable on that rub set, because that cat's going to come in there, or coyote. Everybody thinks about a rub set mainly being a cat set. But we'll catch quite a few coyotes on a rub set with Pecos Valley or Sierra Mist is predominantly what we use. But we're gonna, on that rub set, that trap needs to be bedded right up against it if you've got something pretty vertical. Because that cat's gonna wanna rub from right there on his cheek down your shoulder. And when your house cat comes and does that, your house cat isn't being friendly. He's marking you with that gland right there is what he's doing. He's claimed you, you're his, basically. And so he's rubbing you when they come up and go to rubbing you. They're doing the same thing that a bobcat's gonna do here. They wanna rub across their cheek and down their shoulder. But you want to get that lure up higher, because you get that lure down here, he gets to getting down lower. When he gets to getting down lower, he's putting his feet further out this way, and he may get his shoulder even down on your trap. But the higher up and the more vertical you can make your backing for your rub, to put your rub lure on, the better off you are.
How high off the ground when you put it?
I like at least 15 inches.
You can use a big tree trail the same way.
Yes, exactly. Right there. You can do it right there on that, beaver cutting there or whatever. But I like to get it up there higher because I want their head up. When you go to getting that lower, it makes for a whole lot more place for them to put their feet out here. Plus, it makes for a place for them to get their shoulder down into your trap. The lower you get, the more likely they are to roll on that trap or just get a shoulder in it.
What type of lures are you using? I don't know.
Wayne Derrick's Pecos Valley and Bob Jamieson's Sierra Mist are both excellent rub lures. I had a camera, and I trapped lines for about a year out in West Texas where they'd reintroduced desert bighorn sheep. And we had cameras on our sets. We had cameras on the drinkers and everything like that. that Pecos Valley, it was nearly like they get addicted to it. I would have times where the same cat would come 7, 8 nights in a row to this set, and maybe sometimes a couple of times during the night. And it was a kind of a volcanic rock that I had this on, and that volcanic rock had hair all over it. But the coyotes came to it, the gray fox came to it, the ringtail came to it. Unfortunately, the deer and the aoudad and everything else comes to it also. But they just get addicted. They come day after day. We'll pull a card and they'll have 400 and something pictures on it. And it's every critter in the country's coming, you know, and checking out that Pecos Valley. But cats, the bobcats, sometimes you'd have 2 bobcats there at a time. You'd have one that's got real big, pretty rosettes, and then you got another one that doesn't. You know, that one cat that kept coming 7, 8 nights in a row, and then he'd miss a night or 2, and then he'd be back 5 nights or whatever. He had real pretty rosettes, so you knew it was the same cat. But you could pre-bait with it even, you know.
But you still like the rub set for bugs?
Yes.
Put a higher on.
But I'm going to use a lot of blocked up stuff like this. And even, it's really, we're getting a little off subject, but I'll do it anyway. You know, if I was making a line set in a dried up wash or whatever that I was wanting to block down, I would drive me, that's not going to stay very good. T-post, about a little wider than that, 18 inches or so. But I'd drive, and then I'd come over here, another 18 inches or so, drive another T-post, another T-post, and then about 2 foot off the ground, I would wire in a T-post, which it's going to be up, you know, a little higher than that. But wire in that T-post going acrossways on each side, and then brush in your draw. That's what those, you know, those pruning shears are, dragging up rocks. And that's another thing, especially like making cat sets. If you got that buddy with you, that partner, they're dragging you stuff while you're, because it takes a little more effort to build, you know, sure enough blocked up walkthrough. But we'll brush all of that in and wire in those T-posts, because, I mean, in Texas, we don't have any restrictions, basically. And if you're running an LPC number 8 right here, and you don't have that to where anything can go through, you're gonna catch an aoudad, you're gonna catch a bighorn sheep, it'd be the worst thing you could possibly do, or you're gonna catch a cow, or a Mexican, or whatever, it doesn't matter. They're gonna catch whatever comes by. And I also I don't like cubbies very much, because I like them to be able to come in and go on through the set. I don't want them a dead end, and cats don't mind it, but I think you get some refusals if you're doing cubbies. I did do cubbies on lines down there some, and if I was riding a desert bighorn sheep, I used welded wire panels, 4x4 welded wire panels. I cut a 1 foot wide by 2 foot tall opening to keep those desert bighorns out. I mean, if they sell those hunts, a lot of those ranches, there's not a lot of ranches down there that have them. The states are reintroducing them, trying to get them to spread. But the desert bighorn hunt's 80 grand. Well, I tell you what, they're not real happy with you. You go to catching desert bighorns. And so you got to do everything you can to prevent them. Like I said, I kind of got off subject there, but.
Is there certain times of year that you use certain lures or certain sets?
Not on cats. And I didn't talk about that over there too much, but like in that walkthrough set, I'm gonna put a lure on this side, I'm gonna put a lure on that side. And a lot of times if I've got the cat turds there, I might put a cat turds in between the 2 traps and a squirt of urine. I don't mind if you put a call lure up high, a skunky call lure or something. I've kind of got away from using the visual stuff, and no particular reason other than just more crap to carry, you know. I think they're effective, as well as The squeakers are effective too. I don't know, y'all got some questions? Surely y'all got some questions. Anybody got any of these?
I've never used that. I've never even seen the brand.
You got all of them.
And I ain't got all of them. I just want all of them. It's for sale.
Yeah.
But they don't make this trap and hadn't in, I don't know, 12 or 15 years. It's a real unique trap. It kind of has a built-in shock spring, basically. But that is also connected to the end of the spring. And so the harder something pulls, the tighter those springs twist. And then it has a lockup, and Kendall Obermeyer kind of copied the lockup on his KOs off of this trap right here. Really outstanding trap.
What kind of trap was it again?
This is a KB 5.5, and like I said, they hadn't made them in probably 15 years. They're 1.5 coil springs on them. I have held a corriente cow. You know, it got between the toes. Like I said, we've held lines. Pigs, we catch lots of pigs in them every year. Mule deer, whitetail, Transcaspian Urals. I caught 5 Transcaspian Urals one time on a ranch. Which,
What do you do to non-line? Let it go?
no, that's, they're hiring me to kill them because they have these desert bighorn sheep that's an $80,000 hunt. The state had reintroduced them, and I live about 450 miles from the ranch I was trapping, but I would spend a week out of the month down there, and then the biologist would check them throughout the month. But,
This thing right here,
yes, sir?
you need to go in like all the time?
Yeah, that thing, they'll run, I mean, if you don't want it going all the time, take that electrical tape off. It has a photo cell underneath that electrical tape, so it would just go off at night. I always tape them up. Takes 4 AA batteries. It'll run for 3 weeks or a little better on 4 AA batteries. It'll go off, and then it'll be a minute or two, and then it'll go off. It just cycles in and out. It'll go off for like 10 or 15 seconds, and then it'll be a minute or two, and then it'll go off for 10 or 15 seconds. But
So whenever you use the electronics, it's like a higher catch.
well, like I said, I went and trapped a place on the west side of New Mexico, nearly in Arizona. Very few cats there, and I only caught 4 cats there. But all 4 of them were on sets that had the squeaker on them. And one of those cats was in the next, well, all of them were in the next to last sale at NAFA. And one of those cats brought $1,150. I've had 2 that sold for $1,150. And those other cats brought kind of from 400 to 800, those other 3. When that cat market was really good, I would sure enough go cat trapping. Now, everything, I stay pretty booked up from the 1st of January to the 1st of May on predator control jobs. And I do a lot in South Texas and the hill country and a little bit in the panhandle. And last year I did one over kind of north of Ruidoso, New Mexico. There's 28,000 acres. Biggest ranch I've trapped on is 290,000 acres. That's the Bell Ranch in New Mexico. But
You sit on those rock rims on the cat set. Do you like to run the top of the rim or the bottom?
both. Especially, man, I really like that down off of it. A long running ridge, I think that's good. Kind of part of it depends on how long that ridge runs. If it's not that long, I'd rather be, in my country a lot of times it'll drop off and then straight off a little ways and then it'll taper on down or something. And I like to be right there below that first drop off. And I will walk a little ways for a cat, a few hundred yards or something, especially if there's that boulder pile out there or something that really catches your eye. I mean, It doesn't matter if there's any cat sign there or not. If you're there very long, you're gonna catch a cat there at those boulder piles like that. And I'll walk, you know, a couple of 100 yards to that, or if there's just that ideal location where there's two dry creeks come together or something and you're getting two travel ways, you know, like we was talking about on intersections or whatever, I'll walk a little ways to those. Line sets, you're gonna have, some of them you're gonna have to walk a ways to, but I'm not gonna walk a long ways on cat sets. A few 100 yards is about it. Can't check as many traps if you're walking, you know. And somewhere that creek's gonna hit that road too, lots of times, so I may walk down it trying to find a little better pinched in place or whatever, but you can draw it down a whole lot with, you know, cutting some branches and dragging branches up or whatever's available there. Man, this is gonna be short, I guess. How much time I got left here? Seems like a lot. Yeah, I got a lot of time left. I do. And I usually put two traps on them. A lot of times if I find a toilet, I may set that toilet right there. I may scoop it up just a little bit better and make put two traps on that. And I may come put another set or two in. If I'm on a toilet, I'm gonna put 2 or 3 sets around there. A trash mound, some of the times, if you've caught there and you got a bunch of stuff and debris, pile it up, put you some feathers in it or whatever, embed a trap on it, you know, if they've ruined your location. A lot of times on these, I will drag them, but a lot of times I'm also gonna drag it because I hate to destroy that location, but I'm gonna pre-hook that drag too, back kind of as far back away as I can, and usually they may go across it and scatter it a little bit, but they usually don't just totally trash the location because they've been bit there, and they kind of, a lot of times they'll try to get away from it a little bit. I started using some wire just this last year, screen. Marty Smith makes has some wire that is really, really stiff, and I think I've got some in this bag here. If somebody does use screen and likes screen, this stuff it's stiffer than the stuff Old Garmin or Kendall sells. It's a really stiff wire screen, and every now and then you'll have a miss, and of course you always stand the possibility of getting a toe catch too when you're using screen, but you may get a catch that you would have missed too.
Mitchell, since you have the time, would you mind doing your step down trench set like you were doing?
Well, I don't have, we can kind of do it. I don't have a drill here, but I can kind of tell. And this is, I guess this will be a coyote and cat demo. If I'm trapping where there's high coyote densities, really high coyote densities, man, a step down dirt hole is hard to beat. If I'm trapping in areas that have low coyote densities, I'll use a lot more flat sets there, because usually those where I trap with low coyote density is sheep and goat country or former sheep and goat country, and they've been persecuted for 150 years there. And a lot of times they don't want to work a dirt hole, seems like. Try to get over here kind of where you can see a little bit. And y'all probably, I should have had my drop cloth out there. I try to cut me down just about 6-8 inches like that. This is a super, super effective coyote set. But what's different than some people do, and I didn't even bring my drill or auger because but I take, and at the bottom of this 6 or 8 inches here, and this is, I don't know if y'all know who Rick Miller is. Rick piles up some really big numbers on the coyotes. And I take him on some jobs with me in South Texas. And I mean, this is the set he's putting in every single set. First time we went together, I logged lots of stuff. In the first set, I said, "Hey, what'd you put in there, Rick?" He said, Leggett, Coyote and Fox number 2, lethal injection winter formula. We go to the next set, and I go to logging everything down. I use a GPS, mark everything. You can track yourself on these big ranches, really handy. "Hey, Rick, what'd you use on that set?" Leggett's Coyote and Fox number 2 and lethal injection winter formula. Coming about the third set, and I said, "Hey, Rick, what'd you use there?" And he said, "It will be easier if you just write that down every time. And if I change for some reason or another, I'll tell you." And I meant literally, winter, not this last winter, but the winter before, he caught 600 and something coyotes. And he caught every one of them in this set right here. And the first time I was around it, and the thing, Rick came down and trapped with Leggett's. They would come to Texas, and he took instruction and came down and trapped with Leggett's. And this is kind of what Leggett's, some of theirs, and then modified a little bit. But back prior to that, I had a guy from Pennsylvania that would come down and trap with me, who had trapped with Leggett's and was friends with Leggett's. And he went to slapping this step down dirt hole with just all he uses is a squirt of Leggett in the hole. And the tiniest squirt, he's cheap, really cheap. He says out of one of them 4-ounce bottles, he can get 100 sets. I'm not as cheap as he is. But when you drill your dirt hole down here at the bottom of this 6-inch, I don't know if y'all can see or not, drill that sucker horizontal, as flat and as horizontal as you can back in there. The reason being, and I know lots of people do it, and I'm not saying it's wrong. If it works for you, it's good for you. But when you drill a hole at a 45-degree angle, that coyote can see and smell in that hole from here all the way around to here. He can see or smell in that hole. If you drill a 90-degree straight down hole, that coyote can see and smell in that hole for 360 degrees. You drill this horizontal hole, he can't see in it from but one way. And that way is from right here in a little area right here. That's where he can see in that hole. This trap, I bed mine with the levers in line with the hole. Rick does about 11 and 5 on his levers. And the reason being, and then that screen really shines on this set. And like I said, I would have had a hole here going straight back because this increases your kill area. And I'm not going to bury this here, but we cover that trap. We'll make some sideboards kind of on the side. And this is one reason that I make this set with the levers in line. I don't have hardly any dirt over my levers. I've got some dirt over my jaws, but I don't have hardly any dirt over my levers. But I'm not used to doing this from the side. I normally would be out there. I want these sideboards kind of come up there pretty close to where that pan is. That pan's right there. I want those sideboards to end right there, but I want that to be a step down in to that. Right there's the pan. And again, it would look a whole lot better if I had my hole drilled right there. And I mean, what we're using is, like I said, a shot. And we're trapping down there. The first day we set in South Texas last year was 93 degrees. And we're using Kendall's winter blend, a lethal injection, which has extra skunk.
And you're gonna keep your traffic that close to the hole?
Well, it's gonna be 10 inches back, and you can even go back a little further. I wouldn't go any closer. Part of mine's kind of fell in there.
If y'all would back it up any further to that 12 to 15 inches sometimes?
It would be fine there, and I'm really probably a little tight on this one from what we normally would do. But again, of course, my hole would be there. It looks kind of stupid without a hole there. The first year I took Rick to South Texas with me, it's a predominant southeast wind off the Gulf down there. And we go to pulling up to location. I'm thinking, sit over here with the wind, you know. Rick's off over there. He's not paying any attention to the wind at all. And I'm thinking, I'm gonna crush this guy. You know, I'm sitting with the wind every time. Rick don't care. I'm gonna crush him. Day 2, man, I'm gonna crush him. Day 3, I need to be doing what Rick's doing. Because Rick is spanking my butt. And what he wants to put the set, and I'm doing it and I'm copying him. I'm giving all credit to him. He wants that set in the most obvious place you can see it. He wants that coyote to see that set when he's 30, 40, 50, 100 yards down the road. And if there's a bare spot there or place, roads fork or whatever, he wants that in the most visible place, regardless of wind direction. And again, part of that is this right through here is the only place this coyote can see or smell in this hole that's drilled flat, you know, or horizontal back in there. He can't do it from around here. Occasionally you'll have one that digs here a little bit, but or something like that, but it's not a lot. And when I started using, Rick was using screen and I wasn't. And I would have a set every now and then where I'd have a coyote that stepped in there on the side. And if I'd had screen there, I'd have had him probably. But, so I started using some screen just this last year. I've used these foam pads for a long time and really like them. Probably, you know, in some of y'all's country, it might not be so good because of the freezing up and whatnot. If they got really wet and freeze up, and I dip mine in Zepp's high traffic floor finish. I started doing that when I was trapping lines down there because that's a year-round deal. And if it's 110 down there and you're using wax traps, you have a greasy spot on the ground is what you have. There's no doubt about where your trap is. And every time you go to pick one up, they're sticky and gooey, and so I started using that Zeps, and it's worked really, really good for me anyway.
Did you do anything to avoid hauling?
No. And those KBs hold every one. Yeah. When they had a website up, they had a number of pictures of bears and whatnot, but all the hogs on that website were mine. or Wayne Reed's that's here with too. No, we're gonna catch them. And if they're little, we'll turn them loose. If they want them turned loose, that's up to the landowner, you know.
In the trench, it's just about as wide as your trap.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And then when I build that back up, it may be even narrow it down a little more with that sand and all.
Funnel it back here and funnel it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Is there anywhere you want me to take this?
Oh, I can get it, Pierce. Thank you, though, kind sir.
All right.
Thank y'all so much.
Thank you, sir.